Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Velvet Underground, and this is a new documentary from Apple TV Plus from director Todd Haynes, who previously did films like Carol and I'm Not There, and this film focuses on the origins, the creation, the influence, the legacy of the band The Velvet Underground. Me personally, I'm not the hugest fan of like that punk scene, or this was, I guess, more was they're very much their own kind of thing, right? And the Velvet Underground's very art house kind of music. Lou Reed continued that after he was in the Velvet Underground. They have a very specific sound. You have Nico, who has a very distinctive voice. You could hear her singing in things like the Royal Tenenbaums, and her music being used in what would be called like hipstery kind of cinema. And you have this band who has made such a big impact on so many artists that exist in that like art house, very progressive kind of side of music. That corner of music, if you will, where things are not what you expect out of just a regular rock band. And this film does such a great job of capturing that influence, capturing their sound, and really showing why they were so unique and the different perspectives that came together. Andy Warhol's involvement and relation to the band, which was the film talked about, was able to help them stay in that very progressive and very idiosyncratic channel of music making. And the film does a great job of telling its story as each of its threads pull together to create this band, just as each of the members of the band came together to create it. And there's a texture, there's a feel, there's a look to this film that's very, like, it has its own kind of feel. It's a very classic look. It feels like the interviews were being done in the 60s, even though like you could tell they're being done today. And there's like splitting of the screen with different shots and frames all mixing together. There's even parts where it's like you're giving a bunch of background here and you just have like this still, like this long standing frame shot on Lou Reed as you're talking about his background and him just intensely looking at the screen. There's an artfulness about this documentary that makes it stand out from a lot of just standard looking documentaries. This looks different, it feels different, has a different approach, and it will spend time being poetic and artistic and painting that kind of picture because it's trying to channel that same kind of energy that this band channeled. And I think when a documentary like the Sparks Brothers documentary, I think, captured their quirkiness and their personality into film form, and Edgar Wright was able to really channel that, and Todd Haynes really channels that artfulness and that poeticness about the Velvet Underground and is able to channel that in the approach that he takes in terms of storytelling in this documentary. And you have a specific feel to it. It feels different, like I mentioned, which I think is good because like you could have a sea full of documentaries that all kind of feel the same, but they're telling different stories. This obviously is telling a very specific and interesting story of a very interesting group of people who come from varying backgrounds and brought new perspectives and new approaches to music. And this documentary feels like it's taking a very specific, idiosyncratic channel to documentary making. And I think Todd Haynes shows that he has a specific vision of this documentary, and it feels fully realized. And there's a texturedness to the colors and the lighting. The cinematography is very interesting in terms of how the interviews are done, which I think brings some added layers from Edward Lockman, who is the cinematographer here, who has worked on Haynes' other films, and you can feel like that look that Carol has, which is very vintage and very beautiful and rich in its colors, translates so well into this documentary because it's taking a look at that time period, and that it's like decades ago time period that doesn't feel like a modern 2021. And I feel like that helps this documentary really capture the time, the place, and the influence of what's going on here. Overall, I think this is a really powerful and interesting and intriguing documentary with a unique approach to storytelling that I think gave a fresh and interesting and bold perspective on how a rock doc can actually play out. Because trust me, I've seen plenty. This doesn't feel like your standard VH1, like behind the music kind of documentary. This feels artful and something that's really special. And Apple TV Plus has another winner on their hands. But those are my thoughts on the Velvet Underground. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.